20 years ago, I launched my very first podcast out into the world. And I had no idea at the time that that hobby was going to change the entire trajectory of my life and allow me to serve tens of thousands of people around the world. And I have some very exciting news to share with you in this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I am bringing back Podcast Answer Man, the podcast, the brand, and podcasting A to Z.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards.
Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. I am so excited to share that news with you. Yes, Podcast Answer Man, the brand, is coming out of retirement, and the Podcast Answer Man podcast is already back. Head over to podcastanswerman.com and you will see episodes 475 and 476. It is coming back as my primary focus moving forward when it comes to content creation. Podcast Answer Man is going to be back every single week with a new episode released on Fridays. The number one question that I've been getting from everyone that I've talked to, because I've talked to a lot of people about this decision, is, oh my gosh, Cliff, what's changed? Because this is the last thing that I thought I would be hearing from you. What's the story behind the return of Podcast Answer Man and Podcasting A to Z? Well, Stephanie and I, my wife and I, have another podcast called Building a Life and Business Together. We just recorded an episode of that show where we discussed this very question. Because that episode contains the detailed explanation as to why Podcast Answer Man and Podcasting A to Z is back, I've decided to take that portion of that episode of Building a Life and Business Together. I did a lot of editing on it so that you get the most concise, straight to the point, no additional commentary necessary that's not related to answering your question on, Cliff, what made you decide to bring Podcast Answer Man back? You're going to hear the energy behind all of this. So without any further ado, here is the behind the scenes answer as to why Podcast Answer Man is back. Let's transition to what we teased at the beginning.
Okay.
It was a week and a half ago. I went to the Green Room Mastermind. It was my hot seat. I was giving them an update of how things had been shifting for me when it came to that course correction that I decided to make in Q4 of 2025.
Yes.
I had already, in my previous hot seat, shared with them that the focus that I'd had over really the last 18 months wasn't panning out. I had given a very long runway to see if there might be an interest in a different direction of how I show up in the world and the kind of coaching that I offer people and bringing on clients that way. I shared this in episode 801 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, where I came to the realization that those paid clients that had been with me for years, even though they would argue today that some of the best conversations were at this deeper spiritual layer, I don't believe any of them would have ever hired me or initiated a paid coaching relationship with that the basis of the decision to enter into a paid coaching relationship. It was always this other stuff. And so that's the realization that had occurred to me. And so earlier in my prior hot seat of the Green Room, I had already shared with them that, hey, starting October 1st, I am erasing everything that I have done spiritually focused. I am going to go back to an emphasis on my technical business strategy, personal professional development, mindset stuff that I've been known for. I plan on bringing back my paid mastermind groups for entrepreneurs. I'm going to be focusing on building an online business workshops. I'm going to get back to doing the things that I did prior to the pandemic. That is the last time I saw consistent onboarding of new clients. And one of the things that I know that I'm missing is speaking at events and attending events. So that was my prior hot seat. A week and a half ago, when I went in, I wanted to give them an update on how it's going. I'm like, hey guys, this is incredible. The conversations are flowing again. I'm having lots of potential clients referred to me once again. My content is getting engagement once again. People are sharing my content once again. This is really awesome. Also, brought on 2 new clients recently. And then it might have been Mark Mason that says, Cliff. So I want to tell you, I loved the 2 videos that you put together on that podcast mixer device that you shared about on your YouTube channel or on your lives. Somebody else in the green room says, yeah, it kind of reminded me of the old podcast Answer Man. It seems like something was lit up inside of you. I haven't seen you that excited in content creation in a long time. And I shared with them, I said, hey, I absolutely loved this device. I saw it in my Facebook feed and I could not have it and try it. And then when I got it, it far exceeded my expectations that like within a week, I bought a second one. That content wasn't strategic in some way of like, hey, let me see if I can create something that will get lots of engagement. That was just unbridled enthusiasm for something that I love. And that's what I created. And then I shared with them, I said, and the response from those 2 videos is off the charts. People I haven't heard from in 7, 8, 10 years showing up in the comments, lined up. Oh man, this brings back memories of the podcast Answer Man days. Does this mean you're coming back? All the, these kind of questions. And then I said, along with that, there are a number of technical questions. Cliff, does it do this? How do you do this? How does this compare to this? And specifically, Paul Spain, who is in New Zealand, invited me to do the keynote address for the Asia Pacific Podcast Conference, all expenses paid trip out to New Zealand, 10 days, gave me a house, gave me a car. It was most incredible experience. He asked this question. He goes, Cliff, this is on Facebook. Some of us have been using the Zoom PodTrack P4 for the past several years. How is the P4 Next different? And would you recommend that anyone upgrade to it? And if so, why? Now that is what was previously referred to as a quick question. And I call it a quick question because the answer is not quick. Asking it is quick. What I shared in the Green Room Mastermind was a major epiphany, and that is I have never used a PodTrack P4 device before, but I do have lots of experience now with the PodTrack P4 Next device. For me to answer this question, and I do desire to answer it. I mean, if it was just any average person on the internet, maybe the desire to answer wouldn't have been as strong. But I probably would have wanted to answer this for any longtime community member, but Paul Spain certainly stood out. And I'm like, if he's asking this, I know he's really genuinely interested in the answer to it. And I'd be more than delighted to take the time to answer this question. Now, to answer that question, back in, let's just say 2017, before I shut down podcasting A to Z and Podcast Answer Man and all that other stuff, to answer that question, what I would have had to do is download the PDF document of the owner's manual of the original PodTrack P4. I'd then have to get the manual for this one and look at them side by side and go through page by page, feature by feature, and write down a side by side chart of all of the features and how they're different. And then once I have done that, I will then have to come to some sort of conclusion about why I think this one either is worthy of upgrade and or not. Back in 2017, that would have taken me at least 2.5 hours. And that is very conservative. And depending on my level of focus that day, could have taken upwards of an entire day, 8 hours, 8.5 hours to answer that quick question. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I shut down all of my podcast coaching and consulting work back in the day. However, that question came in and I instantly wanted to answer it. What I did is I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, I have the PodTrack P4 Next. Here's the transcript of the 2 videos that I have shared. Here's a link to the online version of the owner's manual of the PodTrack P4 Next. Please go out and do research on the original PodTrack P4, find its manual, and do a side-by-side comparison of how these things are different. And then what it did is it spit it all out. Thankfully, it does what's called deep research. It also gives me links to all the resources. So one of the things that I was able to, and by the way, that took like 2.5 minutes. Boom, here's everything you asked for, Cliff. 2.5 minutes. So then what I did is I went through and read what it said in the table and in the chart. And then I clicked on the resource, glanced at it to confirm its accuracy, because I have determined that AI tools sometimes can hallucinate and make things up. And I'm just not down for that when I'm giving an answer. I went in and I confirmed everything that was a part of the original device. And then I took all of that research information and I personally wrote a lengthy answer, line by line, feature by feature, of how this is improved above and beyond the original P4. And while I don't currently have a P4 device, if I did have one previously, here are the 5 reasons I would upgrade. If I were to print it out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, it'd probably be about a 2-page response, right? If you printed it out and stuff like that. So it's a very detailed response. It took me 25 minutes. 25 minutes is all it took for that. Here's the other thing. I then went into Notion and I created a new database called Podcast Answer Man Technical Knowledge Database. I added P4 Next common questions and answers. And then I took his question and I pasted my answer. And guess what happened after I pasted that long answer into Facebook on his comment? 3 other people in the same comment thread asked me the same question, because they're not reading everybody else's comment. They're just asking the same question. And so for each one of them, I just go highlight, copy, paste, paste, paste. So each one of those things I've taken this amount of time.
Comment section is really long.
Comment section is very long. And then I go over to YouTube and guess what? The same question is coming up over and over again there. And I just go into Notion, my knowledge database, copy the research and how I've already formatted it and paste it. And I'm like, this is so easy compared to what it would have been years ago. And as I was sharing all of this, this phrase came out of my mouth. You know, if I would have had Notion and ChatGPT in 2017, I don't know that I would have ever stopped doing Podcast Answer Man and Podcasting A to Z. The room fell silent. And then I can't remember which one of them. It's like, so does that mean Podcast Answer Man is coming back? And I'm like, I think so. Not only is Podcast Answer Man coming back, but I'm thinking about bringing back Podcasting A to Z. Prior to that conversation, I had gone into that Green Room Mastermind hot seat, prepared to share with them how things had shifted, how the momentum is being built, new clients are coming on, engagement is going up, referrals are coming in, new clients are being onboarded. I was going to say that my focus for the rest of December, this is again at the beginning of December that I'm having this hot seat. My focus going into that was to let them know that, hey, for the rest of December, I am focused on bringing back and filling the Next Level Mastermind. So when they said, Cliff, what is going to keep you from bringing back Podcast Answer Man, doing Podcasting A to Z as a course cohort like you used to do live with a group of people instead of self-study, and starting that in January? And I said, well, the only thing I think right now that's keeping me from saying, yes, that's what I'm going to go do is because I came into this hot seat with a completely different idea of what I was committed to for the rest of December. And so I need to leave this conversation, evaluate the discussion that's taken place here, and then make a determination. I said, well, when do you think you'll have a decision by? I said, well, certainly by the end of this week. By Friday at noon, I will have decided whether or not to shift my focus away from let's get the mastermind up and running to let's get Podcast Answer Man unretired as a brand and bring back Podcasting A to Z starting in January. I left that conversation and I came and talked to you. Do you remember that conversation? What do you recall? How would you describe that conversation?
I remember asking you what was going to keep you from getting burned out again. I think that was my first question.
Do you remember my answer?
AI.
Fair enough.
I mean, basically, it was Notion and AI that what would take you 8 hours before could take you 25 minutes.
And not every question deserves 8.5 hours.
Exactly. And so I remember sitting on the couch asking you about the burnout, and then I'm starting thinking, I'm like, okay, from bringing in clients, building them into a system from a funnel standpoint, the top of the funnel is dry. There's nobody to fill in any of these other programs that we have that we want to offer. Because when we started the Next Level Mastermind, when we started the Building an Online Business workshop, there were other workshops as well. Those people came in from Podcast Answer Man. Those people came in from Podcasting A to Z.
And they came in from me speaking at a lot of other conferences.
No, I totally know that. I wasn't there yet. Yes. As soon as you clarified that you have resources now that you did not have before that can help with the questions to keep from the burnout, it made complete sense.
Absolutely. There are a couple of other things that occur to me that did not come into that conversation. And that is, I wasn't practicing meditation on a daily basis back then. We're recording this on our 20th anniversary in podcasting. As of today, on Monday, December 15th, 2025, today will be my 1,391st consecutive day of meditation. That spiritual practice, or just mindfulness practice, nervous system regulation practice, whatever you want to call it, that alone has the potential from keeping me from going into burnout. I have a method of regulating my nervous system today I wasn't equipped with back then.
Right.
So I just want to say that is there as well. I have a lot more boundaries of my time. I know where my limits are of effort and energy.
We're not raising kids anymore either.
Yeah.
There's not the pressure to be a good daily dad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? We have adult children now.
That is a good point, because I'm doing some business strategy and mindset coaching for several business owners who have young kids, and they don't have the same freedom to do what I do early in the morning with my morning routine. And navigating that is a little bit more challenging when you have all these other responsibilities. And I thank you, because I didn't even think about that on top of the other things that were going on back then.
Parenting is a mental load.
Yes. Parenting mental load was not something that I've even thought of. There were a lot of reasons why I do not regret stopping Podcast Answer Man and rebranding it to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, and then ultimately making the big leap back in 2017 and saying, you know what, I want to in a way, divorce myself from being known as the podcast answer man. And I want to make a reputation for myself as the mindset answer man and going down that route. And I'm glad that I did for all of the reasons. I mean, without Notion, without AI, I could not have kept up with that. Without the parenting mental load, without the regulation of my nervous system and understanding boundaries, without all the additional personal and professional development that happened from 2017 all the way up through today, there's so much that I mean, gosh, it almost seems easy for me to think about doing Podcast Answer Man and Podcasting A to Z moving forward because of all of the things that have shifted. But the key for me is I don't know that I could have experienced all of this had I not left.
You couldn't have.
Exactly.
You couldn't have. And so when I say that it makes sense and it's the next right thing and looking backwards to move forward, like, I don't mean
going backwards.
I don't mean going backwards. I mean looking backwards, understanding that Podcasting A to Z as it was and Podcast Answer Man as it was had to end so that Cliff Ravenscraft could become the Cliff Ravenscraft he is today. You couldn't have done that. No, you wouldn't have done that on that same path. You would have stayed in the hamster wheel that you knew, and you would have kept spinning in circles.
Yep, absolutely. Very profitable circles.
But circles.
Anyway, all of that to say that I had this conversation in the green room. When I started thinking about bringing Podcast Answer Man back, I began thinking about how giddy and how excited I was to review podcast equipment and how much I was enjoying answering people's technical questions related to it, but not for the same reason as before. I might have gotten excited about answering somebody's technical question related to a piece of podcast equipment because back in the old days, I would have been excited about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this person who's receiving my answer might one day become a student of my Podcasting A to Z course or refer somebody who might become a student of my Podcasting A to Z course, which at the time was the only thing I had to offer professionally. I had affiliate income. I had some commissions on sales of equipment at the time and things like that. But the lifetime value, the highest lifetime value of a client back then was right around $4,000, maxed out. Fast forward to today, I have several clients where the lifetime value of the client, and for those that don't know this, all that means is how much money has a single client given you since you started the paid relationship with them. I have several clients that now have crossed over the $100,000 lifetime value as a client. When I think about answering somebody's technical question today, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is potentially a Podcasting A to Z student. It's like, no, this is the potential of building rapport and trust with somebody, being of value, planting a seed, not knowing whether or not this seed or any of the other seeds, but some of these seeds are going to be planted by the law of the harvest. Some of them will grow into a harvest and turn into a relationship. Some of those relationships might be somebody who signs up for a Podcasting A to Z course. Some of those might already have a podcast and say, you know what, I've been wanting to build a business. I've been hearing you talk about your building an online business coaching program. I'm interested in that. And some of those people may say, you know what, I've already got a successful business, but boy, do I feel alone and I don't have anybody who understands life at my level. I'd love to join your mastermind group. I have so many different layers, and it got to occur to me, it's like, wow, all of a sudden there might be somebody out there who is a professional, who has tons of experience, but they have a day job. and they want to launch a podcast and build a name for themselves as an authority figure on such and such topic. And I help them launch a podcast. And then all of a sudden they start growing an audience, and there's all sorts of opportunities to monetize that. And so I help them build a successful online business around it. And then all of a sudden they leave their day job, and now they're actually earning more money in less hours than they did in their day job. And now they feel alone because they've been an employee their entire life and they don't know any other business owners. And this is, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. There is so many different layers at which I can serve a potential client today. And the other thing that you said earlier in this conversation was that the top of the funnel was dry. And that is true, because the top of the funnel for me for the longest time had been going out to events, speaking at events. And that had not fully kicked back in since the pandemic. It was starting to, but my focus was still in a different direction. That was getting ready to kick in. And before this hot seat a week and a half ago, I was prepared to go back into the top of the funnel, being me going out to entrepreneurial events and all this other stuff. Whereas I would have filled in that top of the funnel, but the funnel going into the top there is not nearly as big as what a return of Podcast Answer Man offers. And when I started to think about this, it's like, wow, okay, so first and foremost, my 20th anniversary in podcasting is coming up. What a perfect time to bring back Podcast Answer Man, to come out of retirement. It's almost like I'm thinking of the narrative, the messaging. I'm coming out of retirement to celebrate 20 years of podcasting and all that I've experienced in transformation in my own life, how it's transformed my entire family, and what I've witnessed podcasting transforming the lives of thousands of the students and clients that I've worked with. I am now bringing back Podcast Answer Man and Podcasting A to Z to take this whole thing to a whole new level. And if I do that, all I have to do is there's a lot of things that I needed to get up and running. I needed to get the sales page for Podcasting A to Z dusted off. I needed to do some work on the Podcast Answer Man feed to bring it back, which, by the way, it's back, podcastanswerman.com. Check it out. Lots of different messaging that needed to be put online. Then there was reaching out to people and letting them know. I reached out to the folks behind PodFest and said, hey, do you guys have any speaking opportunities? Cliff, that's been filled months ago. But if you're bringing back Podcast Answer Man, we'll make a spot for you. I'm like, I am. Like, great. You've got a stage. So I'm like, yes. So I'm going
I've made plans for while you're gone.
Did you? What are you going to do?
I'm going to Tennessee to see Sarah.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So I'm going down to PodFest. I'm going to bring back Podcasting A to Z the week after I get back from Florida. So everything is all set. I've been working a great deal. And once I really feel like I've got everything dialed in, and it's been, a week and a half, and I've been up at somewhere between 2:30 in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning every morning, jumping straight out of bed to come down and start my day because I'm that excited. It has been unbelievable, the amount of things that have been accomplished. All of the pieces that are just falling into place. It's like God is just aligning everything for the return of this. And all I have to do is reach out to a handful of people. John Lee Dumas, Amy Porterfield, Pat Flynn, Michael Hyatt, Loria Petrucci, just a handful of people. And I instantly have access to share the message of the return of Podcast Answer Man and Podcasting A to Z with over 1.5 million people within the next 90 days. That is a top of a funnel. That is there because of all of the years that I spent investing in the Podcast Answer Man brand. Mm-hmm. It's always been there, and it's only now that is the perfect time to bring it back. And I can bring it back without getting burned out. So, Stephanie, do I look burned out to you?
No.
When was the last time you saw me this alive?
Dude, I don't even know.
I mean, it's free the dream days, right?
Probably, yeah.
Free the dream days. I got up at 2:30 this morning. I was down here and working on sales pages by 3 o'clock in the morning. I did not take my headphones off until like 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning. I did more in those hours than I would have been able to accomplish in like 3 or 4 days in the past. This is how flow state I was. And then I went up, fixed myself my breakfast and all this other stuff. And then I went up and took an hour and a half nap. And I'm like, that was great. And then I came down and here we are. We're recording this show. And then after this show, we're going to publish this. And then I'm going to have a live stream with Daphne. And then after that, it's the end of my workday. Then we're going to a Christmas party with the amateur radio community. And then I'm going to be in bed. Well, I'm going to be in bed late tonight.
It'll be late tonight.
Yeah, so I'll be in bed around 9:30 or 10 tonight, which will be late for me. But yeah, this is right. Mm-hmm. I love that I don't have to choose Podcast Answer Man, Podcasting A to Z, answering people's technical questions, and choose not to do business strategy and mindset.
Right. You're not cutting
mastery.
anything else out. You're bringing that back into the fold.
I'm bringing back the easiest path for any person who doesn't know who I am to enter my orbit. The number of people who I know who have a podcast, Loria Petrucci left a review on my Podcast Answer Man podcast. And she says, Cliff Ravenscraft is not only an OG podcaster, he's the reason why half the internet knows what a podcast is. And I'm like, that's not hyperbole.
Right.
When I left my career in insurance, people were claiming that podcasting was dead. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, so much. Anyway, Podcast Answer Man is back. podcastanswerman.com. Podcasting A to Z is back. My next session starts in January, the last week in January. You can check that out at podcastinga2z.com. What an incredible turnaround. Actually, since October 1st, we've seen the momentum shifting. It's like, okay, as soon as the focus went back on the business strategy and mindset, we already saw an uptick in interest, new client onboarding, all this other stuff. Then, as soon as I started sharing about the return of Podcast Answer Man, $2,000 dropped in my account on Saturday, and then another one on Sunday, and then another one on Monday, and these aren't Podcasting A to Z clients. These are people who are like, oh my gosh, you've got me excited about what I've been putting off, and I want to bring back such and such. And these are people hiring me for the business strategy mindset coaching. But all of those are coming in because of what I've been sharing about the return of Podcast Answer Man. And this is right. Well, there you go. That was how Stephanie and I covered the conversation in the Building a Life and Business Together podcast. That was heavily edited. I cut things down simply to give you the most concise answer to the number one question that has been coming up over it's been just over a week and a half. Actually, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. Why is Podcast Answer Man coming back? I thought every time you answered a technical question related to podcasting, a little piece of your soul died. Well, that experience was happening for me back in my Podcast Answer Man days because of the narrative or the story that I was telling myself. I covered that a little bit back in episode 801. But then you can just hear, I am on fire. I have not been this excited to get out of bed and start working since the pandemic. I've been excited about other things, but not related to my business. It was Free the Dream days and building an online business workshop days and the stuff that I was doing back then. And the reason why I was so jazzed about those things is because every day I got to do the thing I felt most called to do in this world. And that is to show up and be of service to people. And now that I've had this major epiphany that with the tools that are available to me today, I can continue to do this deeper layer work, helping people build businesses, overcome the obstacles in their mind, their behavioral patterns. I can do all of that work and not be tied down by all of the technical questions because I have resources available on the technology side that will allow me to be more productive and efficient than I've ever been before. And also, it's been amazing to look back and just recognize how many people in the world who had never heard the name Cliff Ravenscraft before, and they may had never heard that name had they not been interested in starting a podcast or finding technical solutions related to a podcast. And there are so many people out there looking for that still today. And yes, there are a lot more people out there answering questions related to podcasting. And I think that's great. I think it's wonderful. But the number of people who have 20 years of experience, who has the credibility and the reputation in the industry that I have, I know that I will benefit from all of those years invested. And I'm just, Podcast Answer Man is back. Podcasting A to Z is back. I am fully back. All of me coming to the table as the Podcast Answer Man. Now, what does that mean for the Cliff Ravenscraft Show? First and foremost, I want to let you know this show is not going away. In fact, when I made a commitment to bring back Podcast Answer Man, I reconnected to that energy that spoke about the value of showing up consistently every single week, releasing content on the same day, and if possible, even the same time every week, so that people can rely on your content to go with them in their weekly routines, so that they can make you a part of their lives. And with Podcast Answer Man moving forward, that show is now going to have an episode every Friday morning released at 12:01 a.m. And I'm bringing that energy and that level of commitment to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Starting Monday, January 5th, 2026, every Monday morning at 12:01 a.m., I will also release a new episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. With the clarity that I've gained through this decision, and I see how everything is all integrated together, Podcast Answer Man is a show that is devoted to answering technical questions and sharing resources such as software tools, equipment, tactics, strategies for the podcaster, for the content creators. And you may or may not be interested in that content. If you want that content, you will need to go over to podcastanswerman.com and subscribe to that show. In fact, even if you're not a podcaster, even if you're not a content creator, something that has always been true about me is that even when I'm getting deep in the weeds of explaining technology and tools and resources related to the very technical aspects of podcasting, there have been people who have said,
well, I've told you before, this is why I listen to your podcast. You know, it's not because I need more technical information on podcasting. Right now, I mean, the way I'm doing podcasting doesn't really require anything of me technically. I just listen to you because I like the way that you think about life, how you approach the problems you're trying to solve, and just your voice. So you could be talking about anything, and I'd be interested.
And so you might be surprised at just how relevant Podcast Answer Man, my weekly podcast, might be for you, even if you don't have a podcast, and even if you don't have any desire to ever create a podcast. But I'll let you decide if you want that content. It's over at podcastanswerman.com. It's there every single week. But I want to let you know, I am not only keeping the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I am increasing my commitment to this podcast to release that episode every single Monday morning and showing up for you here. And there will be a significant difference between the two shows' formats. And I'll speak more about my content strategy for 2026 and moving forward in episode number 805 of this podcast, because there is a lot of filtering that I will be doing moving forward to decide what gets put into Podcast Answer Man, what makes content the right fit for the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. How do you know the difference between the two? And I'm talking about me. How do I know the difference between the two? And what can you, as the listener, expect between the two different shows? I'll also share my content strategy with my email newsletter and how I plan to do things moving forward with my public messaging and social media and all of that stuff. These are very much the business mindset, the business strategy, the behind the scenes things. And that's the content that I will be keeping here in the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. That's my announcement. You now have the full behind the scenes picture as to why Podcast Answer Man is back, why Podcasting A to Z has returned. I have more energy about this than you could possibly imagine. And also, if you are thinking about either launching a podcast or bringing back a show that's been dormant for a while, or if you have an existing podcast and you would like to brainstorm and work with me as your coach for 4 weeks to discover how you can take your efforts to a whole new level, to kick it up a notch. My next session of Podcasting A to Z is coming up on January 26, 2026. 4 weeks with me as your personal coach. Head over to podcastingatoz.com to register today. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Podcast Answer Man.